meeting underway. Lolita, could we do a roll call?
Recording in progress.
Yes. Amanda Nelson.
Here.
Damian Cole.
Here.
Juan Martinez.
Here.
Judy Stanfield. Kelly Orr.
Here.
Shana Stafford.
Here.
Richard Landon.
He's no longer on the CMAC. We have put Sierra Henderson on it in his place.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Amanda. Ryan Bernadette.
Here.
Suteen Chin. And we have Jim Yee, Public Transportation Operations Director, Alice Cruz, the Senior Transit Planner, and Marquise Williams, Senior Planner, and Lolita Davis, Agency Services. Nice roll call.
And is that a quorum? I think it is.
Yes, it is.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll move on to item 2 quickly, the verbal instructions required by Assembly Bill 219. If you are participating via Zoom to provide public comment during the meeting, please make sure your computer or device has a working microphone. Use the chat feature to submit a request to make a public comment. When the time comes to make public comments, you will be invited to speak. If you are participating by telephone to provide public comment, you should have contacted RTC Agency Services prior to 4 p.m. yesterday and provided the telephone number telephone number you would be calling from, as well as the item or items you wanted to comment on. When the time comes to make public comments, you will be invited to speak. And with that, I'll hand it over to Ryan.
All right. So we'll start with agenda item number 3 today, public comment. So public comment may pertain to matters both on and off the agenda. Comments are to be made to the committee as a whole and not to individual committee members or staff. Committee members may provide public comments. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any public comment today? Please raise your hand or raise your hand in the chat. Looks like Amanda Nelson, you have a public comment. Would you like to go first? And then Damian, you want to go second?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go ahead and start for 3 minutes. Amanda, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to try to get this into 3 minutes. So what I wanted to talk about was a lot of issues that the drivers are having with the bus fares. So I'm sure that a few of you know me from the RTC board meetings in the past asking for the buses to be free. And, you know, it was told to me that it would be far too expensive to make it free. So now we are being told that if someone doesn't have money or doesn't want to pay, that we don't argue with them and we let them ride for free. So now it's causing our other passengers who are paying to either then come on the bus and ask for a free ride, or get upset as to why am I paying and all these people aren't. And it's gotten so bad that now people just walk onto our bus, courtesy ride, courtesy ride, courtesy ride, and that's all they'll tell us, and they'll walk away. Or if we try to say anything to them, they'll say not very pleasant things to us. And if we tell them no, they can't ride for free, then we get, as drivers, we get written up and we get disciplined for it. And it's gotten really out of hand. I mean, every day, every single trip, I have probably 4 to 5 people just saying, I don't have money, I'm riding anyways. And I can't say no. And I'm not talking about the Washoe County School District kids, the PMCC, UNR, I'm not talking about them at all. They ride for free. I mean, I have tiny kids going to school that don't have a pass yet, and I don't make them pay because they're going to school and they're little tiny kids. But these are adults. They just get on and all they say is courtesy ride, and they just go sit down. And now we're at a loss. Like, what do? We were told that the courtesy rides were going to stop when we had our barriers installed, and they haven't. And there was another real quick thing I wanted to talk about. I think it was the new NRS stating that security can remove disruptive passengers in the state of Nevada from transit. It was recently passed, and that's not really happening that much. We don't, I had an extremely unruly person on my bus the other day. I managed to get him out, and then I was told later that I would have to collect him again as he's making threats and very inappropriate comments to the teenage girls that ride my bus to school. And I mean, I put him out. He's not going to be in there acting like that. And I mean, I would have accepted a write-up if they chose to for me not picking him back up. But it's, it's getting bad out there. And I'm thinking like maybe having some security on some of the buses, or, having them rotate routes so that people see them present and know that there could be security or someone on the bus. It might help us a lot.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda. Yeah, I definitely understand that. And I think your comments have been noted. If we have extra time at the end of the meeting, we could probably circle back and we could probably hear responses from the RTC staff. Okay. Thank you, Amanda. All right. Damien, you have 3 minutes for the floor.
I was just going to ask, can I ask Amy a quick question? When you get 86'd from a bus, is it your discretion when someone can get back on the bus, or is it management's decision? How does that work? Oh, I think she muted herself. Okay, we can hold that for later. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, hello. So yeah, 3 minutes. So yeah, I saw that the biggest little bike network is at 90% completion phase now, which I still hold with a grain of salt. I know that is simply just a requirement to retain federal funds. It's basically just a report to the government saying, yes, we're making progress with this. I'm afraid that in the minds of people that it just means, oh, well, we can't go back and we can't make changes. We're 90% complete. So I have still major objections to Vine Street being used. Vine Street is a horrible idea. We need to switch that to Washington. The bridge is arched, quarter mile long, versus Washington, a block away, which is a fifth of the distance, and it's flat. It's got pedestrianization already on it, sidewalks. It can be easily converted into having bike facilities. Versus Vines, which is like half the space, was not designed for anything other than motor vehicles in 1971 when ADA compliance wasn't a thing. There's so many other reasons, though. It's like Vine only goes up to 11th, but Washington has a direct connection all the way up to San Rafael Regional Park. There's 3 parks along the entire route at the very beginning, end, and the middle. There's 4 lanes on Vine, which would require lane reduction to accomplish the protected bike lanes, but Washington is already only 2 lanes, even though it's the same 80-foot width. So less work. Vine has a lot of bare areas off of the street on the curb, which would allow for cheaply making a 2-way bidirectional bike path that can be adjacent to the sidewalk, directly next to it. So you wouldn't even need to have bikes on the road. It would be just like what's on Wells. It would be safe enough for children to use without a helmet. And that was the original aim for this new type of facility. There's a stoplight at 4th and Vine, which you would need additional protected intersection for. Make it
about 30 seconds, Damien.
Yeah, I have a timer here.
Cool.
So put it on Washington, where there's already mode filtering, an existing flashing beacon. The data that was used to select Vine over Washington was collected over 10 years ago when Keystone was being looked at. This was part of the Keystone survey. That data is outdated. It was before mode filtering was put on the 4th. It was before Jacobs demolished a bunch of buildings on Washington. So there's even less traffic now. It's not considered a PEVR. I think that they really need to reconsider all of this. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your comment, Damien. I'm sure your comments have been noted by RTC staff. Okay. Do we have any more public comment today before we go down to approving the meeting minutes from next week? Okay, I don't see any further comment. So we'll move down to agenda item number 4. Attached to the agenda packet are the meeting minutes from our last meeting, which was September 3rd, 2025. Does anybody have a motion and a second to approve those meeting minutes?
I, Kelly Orr here, make a motion to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, thank you, Kelly.
Hannah Stauffer, I second.
Okay, thank you, Pana. All right, in that case, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor of approving the September 3rd, 2025 committee meeting minutes, say aye.
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 All right, opposed, say nay. Okay, thank you. The meeting minutes have passed. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, information and discussion items. So there's no action on these items. The purpose of the committee is to provide information, advice, and recommendations regarding certain regional planning documents, proposed major transit service changes, and proposed transit fare policy changes as part of RTC's public participation plan, as well as information and advice on benches, shelters, and transit stops in accordance with Assembly Bill 214. RTC staff selects and presents items that are intended to further that purpose. Following a presentation by RTC staff, committee members will have the opportunity to ask questions, discuss, and provide feedback pertaining to the item. So today we just have one item. We have item 5.1, provide information, advice, and recommendations regarding an update on the development of the fiscal year 2026-2030 Move More with RTC plan, and provide feedback to staff. Since we only have one agenda item today, I say we probably have about 45 minutes to discuss after the presentation. Do we have a presenter today?
Yep, I'll be presenting.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Go ahead.
Sounds good. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alex Cruz, Senior Transit Planner for RTC Washoe. I'm also going to have Jim Gee kind of helping me with this since my iPad is not really great with PowerPoint, so he's going to actually run the PowerPoint for us. And we're going to do a presentation on the Move More with RTC transit plan. So what the Move More with our RTC transit plan is our, Jim, you can actually move on to the next slide for me, please. What the Move More with RTC plan actually is our short range transit plan. So what we do is, we have this kind of overarching plan that guides like the next 5 years or so of the transit service in Reno and RTC. So in the past, it was known as TOPS, the Transit Optimization Plan Strategies. It's still the TOPS plan. We just kind of gave it a more flashy name with Move More with RTC. And what it does is actually kind of guides us as far as like the capital and operational improvements that we're going to make for the next 5 years, starting with fiscal year 2026 and going to 2030. It also informs the regional transportation plan, which is that larger 30-year plan. And so something that's a little bit different with this plan compared to the one in 2022 is, towards the end of that 2022 plan, we realized that some of the things that were in there were a little outdated just because the plan was done around COVID and some of the changes in the way people commuted to work and all that kind of stuff made some of those final steps not really worth pursuing anymore. So we decided to get an early start and work on this new plan again. And then while we were doing that, we also decided that we were going to focus a little bit more on RTC Access, Flex Ride, and the Senior Mobility Program. So where in the past we did look at those areas as well, we have a little bit more of a focus this time around. So next slide. So the project timeline is broken down into 3 phases. Right now, we're basically in that first phase where we're doing community feedback, where we're asking for like surveys, and we're also doing a service review. So our contractor that we're working with is actually been doing a lot of work behind the scenes with things like digging really deep into access, into ride, into flex ride, into some peers for us, all that kind of stuff. And then we've also put out that first survey, and we've been doing some community meetings. The next step is going to be feedback on draft recommendations. So what that means is coming into like January, February, March, we're going to take all that information in that we've been gathering from these public meetings, from that survey, plus everything they've been able to kind of see. We've been given a lot of data, a lot of underlying information, and they're going to come to us with some draft recommendations. We'll come back out to the public with those draft recommendations, show everybody, and then kind of once we take all that new information as far as those recommendations go, then we'll finally come back to the RTC board again, probably around March, April, and present final recommendations to the board. So moving on, what's different from 2019, which is the data that was used in the last TOPS plan versus 2024, which is the data they're using in this plan, is that from what it looks like, people are doing their trips a little bit more later in the afternoon. So what those two graphs in this slide show is all trip activity. This is not just bus activity. This is actually trip activity going across like people's personal vehicles, all that kind of stuff. So you can see is that there's an increase, A, in ridership or in trip activity, but B, that those rides are tending to be more in the afternoon. And same with the weekends. The weekends have gotten more and more popular as well. And then again, that trip activity is also kind of pushing towards the afternoon. So next slide. And so what we are seeing as well is that when we compare that trip activity to the actual RTC ride bus trips that we have available, we're seeing that, you know, those peak hours, 3 to 6 or 7 o'clock, there's a bit more trip activity, where the amount of trips that we have as far as actual bus trips is kind of holding steady, which could be a couple different things. It could be an opportunity for us to kind of increase those trips in that late afternoon, or it could just mean that, you know, we're our buses are running a little bit more full during that time, and we're being a little bit more efficient as well. And kind of same for the weekend, where we see that our bus activity is kind of ramping up early in the morning, so 4, 5, 6 a.m. And we're kind of beating that trip activity, where there's a lot less trips and there's a lot more bus trips going on. And then we kind of tail out, and we probably can increase a little bit more activity as far as the buses go in the middle of the day and just overall. So one of the things that we noticed as well is that the bus levels are still 25% less on the weekend than on the weekdays. So again, that could be another opportunity where we can increase the amount of trips that we offer on RTC Ride. Next slide. And so what we see here is, you know, where is that trip activity increasing? So again, this image shows where trip activity in general is increasing. So this is all trips, not just bus trips. But we are seeing what is basically a large increase in that Sparks industrial area, as well as up by UNR. And then there's a couple outlying areas like Spanish Springs, and then also down in the South Meadows area. So kind of a little bit past Meadowwood Mall. So that just means that, you know, it makes sense around, you know, the university, around warehouses, things like that, where jobs are increasing, and we're just seeing a lot more people kind of going out and riding. Next slide. And so then when we look at our ridership trends and we try to compare back to that last TOPS plan, you can see that we had that 2019 data that was used for the first TOPS plan. Ridership was close to kind of one of those all-time highs. But then COVID came along, it really dropped our ridership. We started kind of coming back, and then that's about where we pulled that 2021 data, again for the TOPS plan. And then the bus strikes happened, the driver strikes happened, and that really kind of plummeted that ridership. And then since then, we've kind of been on a pretty steady comeback. And so we see that, you know, our ridership has been increasing for the last 3 years or so. Ride has increased, 14% from 2021, and Flex Ride has been the biggest increase with 39%. But realistically, we still are below that 2019 pre-pandemic level by about 24%. So it just goes to show, pandemic was tough on us, just like everybody else, but we are bouncing back. Next slide. And then kind of when we break it down in this image by exactly where that ridership is kind of coming from, we see that the Virginia line is the biggest ride generator that RTC has, followed by Vanpool, which actually works really well. And then we see also the Route 11, which is a great sign because Route 11 was one of those routes that was changed by the last TOPS plan. And then, regional connector still probably the smallest, which makes sense. It has the least amount of trips available. But the big thing that we see is that Virginia line, the Route 1, the Lincoln line, and the 11 account for about 52% of all of our ridership, and then the rest of those routes kind of make up the other 48%, along with Vanpool, and it just kind of shows that we're taking care of those two corridors really well. Next slide. And so where has our actual transit ridership increased? This is very similar to that other slide where, we are seeing again that Sparks industrial area is still kind of showing that, we are getting a lot of ridership there. That Meadowood Mall area as well. And then a little bit kind of going up towards UNR, and then also out that 7th and McCarran area has been doing really well as well. So this is just going to show kind of that our routes as they are right now are pretty close to kind of serving a lot of where those rides are coming from, which is a good sign. Next slide. So part of this process that we've been doing is a peer review. So we basically, our contractor tries to find as many similar bus agencies that are similar size, similar ridership to us, and kind of find if we're comparable to them. If we're not comparable, what really is going on, right? So what they found is, we do spend a similar amount of money on our total transit service, and we also spend a similar amount of money on overall bus service. One of the things that they've noticed is that while we do provide less route coverage, that's those specific fixed routes, we might be a little bit small on that route coverage, but we complement it with that flex ride, and we have those flex ride zones. So realistically, we're probably on par, if not better, as far as total service area covered. But one of the things they notice is just, our bus speed is a little bit slower. Where does that come from? And it's probably, most of our trips tend to be a little bit shorter. Those routes are a little bit short, so we're riding in traffic. But it's something that we could take a look at and figure out why our buses are going a little bit slower than the rest of our peers, and how that can speed up and make those trips for our riders a little bit better. But we do see that we exceed our peers in bus passenger trips per capita, per revenue hour, and per revenue mile. So that kind of bottom right corner where you see the operating expense per passenger trip, we are probably the lowest, which just means that we're being very efficient with our service. Our paratransit activity, our productivity is slightly below our peers. So that's another thing that we're going to be kind of looking into, is why exactly are we less productive on access compared to some of these other peers like Lane Transit in Eugene or Victor Valley Transit. But overall, we are cost effective, and we just have some shorter trips, and so that kind of does make up for a couple of those little things there. Next slide. So when we look at transit propensity, what that means is areas that are going to be more inclined to ride transit. And we have on the left of those higher correlation items. They found that, weekly trip density, areas with jobs, persons with disabilities, street intersections, which is actually just kind of walkable streets, low income and college aged populations are groups or items that kind of show that people are going to be willing to ride transit a little bit more. whereas his lower correlation actually ended up being things like 0 vehicle households, minority residents, total population, seniors, and youth. So that just means that, those are areas that we could probably focus a little bit more on to try to get them riding transit. But again, when we overlay that transit propensity with our current route map, we find that our routes are pretty close. There's probably a couple spots. There's one out in Sparks where we could see that there's higher transit propensity, but we don't have a fixed route out there yet. We do have flex rides, but it just goes to show that there's still kind of areas that we can probably capture a little bit better. Next slide, please. So what are we doing right now is we are holding this community survey that we've been had open for most of September. It runs through October 12th, and it's for basically anyone. If you're an existing rider, we have questions set up for RTC ride riders, flex ride, access, and the senior mobility programs. If you ride any of those, you would check the box saying you ride one of those, and it would give you questions on that specific service, things you like, things you don't like, things you'd like to see. And then we also have questions for non-riders. So if you don't happen to ride the bus, it'll ask you questions like, what might make you want to ride the bus? What are ways that we can do, or what are things that we can do to kind of try to get more people riding that bus? And it's available currently on our website and a few other areas. And this will be through, like I said, October 12th. Next slide. And so public meetings. So one of those big aspects that we've kind of talked about is that, we have been trying to get in front of the public and get comment as much as possible. So we held.
Excuse me,
yeah.
Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, this is Dora. My phone was talking and I didn't hear you about the survey. Did you say it's in the buses too? There's a flyer or QR code in the big bus?
The big bus, I believe we don't have yet. We had it on the transit app, which I think it just expired recently, and we'll kind of get it back up again. But as far as access and flex ride, it should be up on there as well.
In the bus physically, like a flyer?
Yeah, I think I talked to Susie today, and she said I think they're getting it up there pretty soon. I believe she already had them printed, so they should be going up on the buses.
Will it be? I know it's going to be against OML, but I can't see, and they can go ahead and try and sue me. But my question is, will it be behind the driver's seat in consistent spot, not different spot in the bus, so we know as blind people, if it's there, we can take a picture of it and take the survey. That's just a suggestion. So keep it consistent on all access bus. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll let Susie know. Thank you. So our public meetings, we've held 4 public meetings up until to this point. We had 2 virtual meetings, and then we had one in Sparks and one at McKinley. We tried to do one during the day, one in the afternoon, and then the virtual meetings, one in the day, one in the afternoon. We're presenting today to CMAC as well, as you know. Tomorrow we'll have our consultant also presenting to the TAC. And then on Tuesday, October 7th, we're also going to present to the Reno Access Advisory Board. And then, like I said, this is kind of this round of public meetings. We will take all this data that we get from the survey and from the public meetings, put that together with some recommendations, and then we'll come back out to the public again in January and hold a couple more meetings, and then probably come back again to CMAC, the TAC, and discuss kind of those draft recommendations. Next slide. Yeah, so the next steps, our public meetings, we're just about done with these public meetings. We have about a couple more, like I mentioned. Our survey closes in a couple weeks, and then it's basically draft recommendation time. They're just gonna sit down, pour through all the data, go back into the public, and then try to come back to the board. We're saying March is probably going to be closer to April, depending on just how things go. And so last slide is questions or feedback. So we have a project site. It's rtcwashoe.com/move-more. It has a lot of the same kind of information. It has a QR code for our survey as well on there. We have a phone line kind of dedicated to trying to get any feedback as far as the Move More side projects. So this 335-0019 phone number does not go to customer service. It actually kind of goes to us. And then we also have an email. So if you have a specific comment that you want to write out, you can email us at movemore@rtcwashoe.com. And that, again, that'll kind of be included in those recommendations. We're going to try to pull as much as we can. And then as well, we're here right now, so we can take note of any kind of questions, feedback, any of that kind of stuff. And we can include that as well. But that's about it for me. And with that, I can take any questions.
All right, looks like we have, looks like Damien, you have a question?
Yes, hi, thanks for the presentation. So I want to make sure, so the surveys, one of the questions I'm guessing is, do you find the service acceptable? Or are you looking for improvements? Are you looking, like, and where is the survey being cast? Is it being sent region-wide, or is it being selectively targeted? How is that working?
Yeah, so the survey, first off, as far as where we're kind of casting it, we've tried our best to kind of get it out in front of as many people as possible. We have ads on Instagram. We have ads, I believe, in a couple other social media. I think Facebook. RTC's socials have been kind of pumping it out as best as possible. We did a segment on the Color News and a couple other areas, and then we've been going to like the senior center and those kinds of places and try to get out there. And then, like Dora mentioned, we'll get those flyers out on the access buses, and I believe we're going to have some as well at 4th Street Station and Centennial Plaza. So that's kind of where we're trying to get, as you know, the information out to everybody. And then as far as the actual information on the survey goes, yeah, we're asking what works, what doesn't work. So, and that's for every service, so not just specifically Ride. So Ride will have that section that says, do you use Ride? What works? What have you found doesn't work? That kind of thing. But then same thing if you use Access, if you use Flex Ride, it'll have a similar question saying what works, what doesn't work, what would you like to see? And then we're also asking people to kind of prioritize. There's like 9 categories, and we're asking people to prioritize which are they looking for. So it might be more service on the weekends, more service on weekdays, more service in the afternoon, that kind of thing. And we'll take all that kind of information and compile it.
Because I was going to bring up something. I don't know if you can go back to the map for a moment, but I saw some correlation there between ridership level versus the frequency and proximity. In other words, wherever the bus is available is more likely for that line to be ridden. I believe it's going to be, it's there. Yeah, I think that was that one right there. In other words, like everywhere where there's a single family home and income levels are going to be higher, there's no buses nearby except for maybe South Meadows. That's the right one right there. So in other words, there's nothing in Spanish Springs. There's nothing in the Kings Row area. To me, it just seems like you're basically asking people. I don't know what's on the survey, what the wording is, but it seems it's like you're asking them, are things okay? How do you like the service? But if there's no service other than Flex Ride, that's could kind of be like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It seems like, with rising cost of living, I think there's a chance that things might have changed over the last few years where people that do live in single family homes might be interested in having more fixed routes in those areas if they were available, but there's nothing there. So yeah, it just seems kind of like, yeah, what exactly are you asking them? And are you looking into, like asking them, if there was a fixed ride route here in your neighborhood, would you be more likely to use it? I think that would be a good question to ask. Yeah,
and we sort of do. We ask, what would make you ride it more? So I think one of the responses that you tend to get is, if there was a stop nearby, if there was a route nearby, that kind of thing. It is a little bit difficult, like you said, because to get a fixed route, you need ridership. So, for example, Sparks is kind of a good one where, you know, we've had routes there before that kind of extended out and there was no ridership. So they made it a good candidate for FlexRide. And then once we get to a point where we can say, you know, FlexRide is getting popular enough and we have these hot spots, which we do have that data, then we could say, all right, now it looks like we're starting to transition to that point where that fixed route is going to be worth it again. So it's kind of it's a little bit of a toss-up where we have to find that balance of when do you make that switch back over to a fixed route versus a something like FlexRide, because it's just, you know, the way these kind of routes work. I mean, it's, you know, very expensive for us to kind of to get a bus out there.
Oh yeah, well, I mean,
so
but
FlexRide's
also
a little bit easier, but you know, hopefully this is what that community survey kind of tells us, right? Is where people want these routes, and we can kind of pull that data, back it up as well.
I also see it though as like, well, if they're getting used to FlexRide, then they might not want the bus as much anymore. I don't know. It just seems like, you know, you're basically asking them, you need to have ridership for a line that's not there to get a line there. So it just seems kind of like, I don't know. I don't know if it feels like a downward spiral trend to me, but you know, yeah, that's just my opinion. But yeah.
Yeah. I understand it. It's tough.
Oh, bullshit. Oh, excuse me.
All right. Any other comments? Hannah, go ahead.
Hi, Alex. Thanks so much.
Hi.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about what Damien was just articulating as well. And I appreciate your explanation. So, kind of, I have a couple of different thoughts here, kind of along the lines of what you were just talking about with Damien. I did have a friend who I don't think rides transit at all. She went to take the survey and then she told me, this isn't for me. Like it's not for people like me. And when I went into the survey, I did see, you know, most of the initial questions were about like, do you ride RTC ride? Do you ride Flex ride? Do you ride Access? And if you've never ridden the bus at all, you don't even know like what those things are. So just throwing it out there that it might be helpful to have a completely different open-ended data collection question that just says, what would make you ride the bus? It's just like a standalone question. Because I could see someone entering this survey and just feeling like, well, I don't do any of this, so I'm out of here. So I'm just putting that out there. Since you are so open to all these different forms of input, you know, that might be an option. And I do want to say thank you for the really intensive outreach you've been doing. And I so appreciate your pointing out that the outreach is bilingual, that you're using social media. I've actually been getting an email from the automated email alerts every day about the inputs. So, so it's definitely functioning. I can tell you that. Okay. Similarly to Damien's point, yeah, the ridership is great where the service is great. And I just wonder how to look at that from the opposite direction. Like, if the service were better, would the ridership be better? And maybe it's a matter of increments, like extending these really high functioning lines just a little bit, or like, you know, providing some last mile connections, or just a little more connection. I don't know. So that's also on my mind, is like the statement, we know we're serving these areas well because the ridership is good. It may be the other way around. The ridership is good because the service is good. Back to a very old, probably annoying point of mine. I don't really know how people ever found out about the Flex ride in South Reno. There was a sign, there was like a sandwich board for a while at the Home Depot, and I thought that was wonderful. And I think you could try something like that at like Walmart, at the library. I know I'm always harping on the library, but what if there were a sign at the library that says, would you like to take transit here? Click this QR code and like learn about the Flex ride and answer this open-ended question about what would make you take transit. I think there's, since you're being so open-ended about input, which is wonderful, I would take advantage of those really popular areas. The Walmart, the library, I mean, now's the time. I've never seen a sign at the library that says you can take an RTC vehicle here. And I believe that that is the busiest library or one of the busiest libraries in the whole system. So again, putting that out there.
Mhm.
And then last is a question. All that trip data, you said it included cars?
Yeah, so the first trip activity, the slide with the two graphs, that was all car activity, so all trip activity, and that comes from our contractor. They use a company by the name of Replica that gathers that data.
Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate all the work.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Panab. JM, you're well. Go ahead and go first. I don't recognize you, and Minnie, could you introduce yourself as well? Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Josh. I'm the Public Information Officer for RTC Washoe County.
Okay.
My question to the group is, of the criticisms of the survey, how many in this group have taken it?
Oh, I didn't even know about it until now. Yeah, this is Damien.
And it looks like Panav's raising their hand.
I started to take it, and honestly, I got overwhelmed after the first couple pages. So finishing it is on my to-do list.
Because we have had individuals take it on iPads in about 90 seconds at our senior events.
Could you link it in the chat, perhaps?
Josh, for Juan Martinez, we take it on our iPhone, and he's pretty good. Good job. It's pretty accessible. I could do it with my eyes closed.
And Josh, I'm not trying to say it's not easy and that someone, with already formed thoughts couldn't take it in 90 seconds. It's just that when I opened it, I got to thinking. And like I mentioned, my friend, she saw those different categories and she just told me like, oh, it's not for me. But it is for her because that's what Alex just told us. So I don't intend to criticize the survey. I'm just sharing that.
Well, it's not even that. I'm just
the dots
encouraging
aren't
people.
connecting.
I'm encouraging people to interface with it and take it first before providing comment.
I will try my best because I have my hand raised right now.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions about this? Damien has another comment. I just want to make sure we have a chance for everybody to speak. Yep. Okay. It doesn't seem like anybody else. Damien, go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to add what Panaz said. I think a really good comparable survey would be, because like I said, I haven't taken the survey yet, but the national survey on bicycle usage, they were looking to add bicycle usage. So the survey was geared toward inducing demand and looking for those people that didn't. So like the largest category of people that don't use bicycles is interested but concerned, which was like over 50% of the national population during that survey. So yeah, so that's what I would, I like, yeah, you make a very good point, Jan. I don't know what the survey says yet, but I'll get back to you. I'll take it right now while I'm listening. But yeah, if it doesn't do that, then I would have the survey questioned and polled in that direction of, if you don't use the bus, would you be interested if it were more available? Because if there's a correlation between low income and bus usage, that perception kind of permeates into the minds of the people. It's like, oh, I don't want to have to be with a bunch of bums on the bus, and there's violence on there, and I hear bad things, and there's people being attacked on there, which one person next to me had a knife and almost took it out on someone else. I've been there. We have to change that perception, which means that we have to get higher ridership from people that have houses and higher income levels, but just want to take the bus. So yeah, anyway, thank you.
Okay, and thank you for that input as well, Josh.
Oh, Josh,
all right.
sorry, not JM, Josh.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm DC, so
Right.
change that.
Okay, so I kind of already asked if we have any more comments on this. I didn't hear anything. I'll just double check before we move on to agenda item number 6. Anybody? Okay. All right. Number 6, RTC staff announcements. Do we have any RTC staff announcements today?
Hey everyone, Marquise Williams, Senior Transportation Planner, RTC. I had an announcement, which I was going to request that anyone who hadn't already replied to the email that I sent out a couple weeks ago about whether they wanted to stay on with the CMAC, they could do so now verbally, but I believe that actually everyone on this call did respond to the email, so 2 thumbs up to the group. I guess I can announce Michael stepped down from the CMAC, which, yeah, definitely a loss to the group. I think he provided good feedback, so we're grateful for his time on the committee. But yeah, I think today's discussion was evident that this is a really powerful and engaged group. So thanks all for the good conversation. Damien, I saw you had a question that might be related.
Do you have openings available? Because I am kind of reaching out to people I talk to, and I don't know whether to say, oh yeah, go ahead and apply. What's the status like for the membership of CMAC right now?
Yeah, so we're going to go forward to the board this month for the October meeting for reappointment of existing members. So that'll be on consent at the October meeting. After that is when we'll start internally discussing how we want to go about, juicing the numbers for the committee. I've got some emails from people interested in joining. People are, dedicated and passionate about this, like everyone else on this call. So we definitely want to invite folks, but I guess we're not quite at the point where we're taking people in, but we're working towards that. So I'd say at the November meeting, we'll have an update for you.
Great, thank you.
And I believe there is an application. I'm not sure if it's a public-facing application, but there is an application. So the first step is to look over that application and make sure that it's still relevant and up to date. So more to come.
All right. And then we'll move on to agenda item number 7, public comment. Public comment may be pertaining to matters both on and off the agenda. Comments are to be made to the committee as a whole and not to individual committee members or staff. Committee members may provide public comments. Public comment is limited to 3 minutes. I know we talked about, Amanda, we might get back to your public comment from earlier. I just want to make sure there's not any new public comments since then. We'll go ahead and do the new ones first. Does anybody have any new public comments?
Mr.
Anybody...
Bernadette, can I go?
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you. This is Dara Martinez. So, I don't know if you guys could hear me okay. It's on speaker.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. And just remember, you have about 3 minutes.
I don't see it. Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah.
So just a heads up to, I guess, to the RTC folks at the Centennial Plaza. So for those of you who don't know, I'm blind and I use my phone for everything, and I take a picture and it would read it to me, my AI. And there was a sign that says access pickup, RTC access. But when we went there, there was a bus a big bus that was charging. And so they didn't know where I need to go for my access to pick me up. So maybe, you know, I'm not going to ask you all to move the charger, but maybe you all could move the sign, the access sign somewhere else, so people who are access riders, people who are blind and have a hard time navigating the Centennial Plaza, especially when it's snowing or raining, to move the sign to where there's no charger for the bus. So that way when we are there, the bus driver can see us, because when we call the access bus, they cannot lose the sight of the bus when there are clients who are developmentally disabled in the bus, even though it's a door-to-door. So that's a safety concern. And I hope Jim is listening. So maybe you guys could change that sign to where there's no charger on the bus and it's designated solely for access riders. Thanks.
Thank you, Dorley. And then I think your public comment has been recorded. Jim, did you hear that as well?
I sure did, and I just made a note that we'll take a look at it and figure out what's going on.
Okay, thank you. All right, Amanda, let's make sure. Yeah, Damien, go ahead.
Sorry.
We'll just make sure yeah,
Pana, I looked at the survey, and so I tried clicking on, because it gives you like a multiple choice question. So when I go to the site, survey, it asks, which of these public transportation services have you used in the last year? Choose all that apply. If you hit none, it changes what you see on the next page. If you're a non-rider, it's asking you a different series of questions. So I would have to question, how come your friend didn't think that the survey was for her? I haven't taken that yet, but I just want to say that there is like a multiple choice, like a choose your own adventure kind of pathways, you know, to so yeah, I don't know if I don't know. I don't know how come some people might not think that this might not be for them, or I don't know.
Yeah. Okay.
But thank you.
No problem. All right, Amanda, let's go ahead and circle back to your comment from earlier. Do you have anything else to add before I would like to respond, and maybe RTC would like to respond, I'm not sure, but if you have anything to add, go ahead and start.
So when you're talking about trying to increase ridership in the higher income range, that would, you know, maybe putting security on the buses so they feel more comfortable. I mean, they have it in Vegas for certain routes, and we could definitely use it for certain routes. I mean, not all of the routes, because some of them are pretty calm, but certain routes could definitely use some more security on those buses. And what Dora was saying about the access bus that is a charger there, and they use it now, there is a spot I could suggest, and if they want to look at it, it's right behind the Route 9. It's an open spot. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Amanda. I'm gonna go ahead and make my public comment on the bus fare situation. Yeah, I think a while ago I made a comment about, you know, just kind of asking the RTC staff about the financial situation for the bus tickets and whether or not they were still necessary. You know, I travel pretty extensively across the US for work, and I see a lot of different travel agencies, and I use them a lot to get to and from the airport and my job sites. And I've kind of seen the whole gamut of tickets, no tickets, or this in between that we're seeing, where like the tickets are there and you're supposed to use them, but we're not going to enforce it. And yeah, and I think it's best if you choose one or the other, but I think you have to stick with one or the other.
Yes.
I kind of agree with Amanda that I don't think it makes the people who pay feel horrible. Well, not horrible, but it makes the people who pay feel, you know, scammed, angry. It makes the people who don't pay feel entitled to a free service that, you know, is they should probably be grateful for rather than entitled to. Um, and you know, I proposed not having the ticket fare because primarily one of the reasons I don't take transit too much when I'm actually in here in Reno these days is that I ride a scooter that gets pretty good miles per gallon and is cheaper per mile than the bus route is. And I know that's not necessarily my most socially um, cooperative behavior because that scooter has emissions as well. Um, but I sometimes do it for financial reasons. I think it would be better if we increased taxes somehow through some method upon the more wealthy and affluent residents of this county, such that they can cover the costs of that 40%, you know, profit from the tickets, so that everybody has access to the bus. There is no friction at the toll. The buses run faster because nobody has to sit there and use the Bluetooth thing, which only works half the time, and then tickets and cash. I think it would
We
kind
also
of
take pennies.
and take pennies, yeah, right,
We
right,
do.
which we barely even make anymore. And uh, the banks are charging for pennies and nickels these days. They're basically worthless. Um, so yeah, I would just like to, you know, my public comment is that I agree with Amanda, and I think that we should look towards removing the tolls entirely because I think, you know, it's a public service. I think the wealth disparity in this country is kind of abhorrent, and I think it's time that we tax appropriately and measurably so that the lower income residents have a chance as well. Thank you.
For the record, this is Jim Gee, Director of Public Transit. I just want to respond to your comments, Ryan and Amanda. Um, and while I generally agree that our taxing structure is not optimal in this country, I mean, that's a bigger issue than what we can solve here. The fare issue is also a big issue, and I understand completely where Amanda's coming from and the other drivers. You know, we don't want to put them in danger. We've had incidents in the past before, but at the same time, we just need to continue to accept money. Right now, our fares are about $5 million a year, and just rough math, if you take 5 million out of our budget, that's probably 3, 4 routes, and no one wants that. So I think it's something we do need to think through in terms of what direction we give our drivers and with regards to courtesy tickets or courtesy rides. I know in terms of the overall fare structure that we have and our finances, that's all being evaluated as part of this Move More with Reno project. That's actually a big part of the plan is to make sure that not only are we charging appropriately, but also that the service we put out there is service that we can commit to. Because the worst thing in the world is to put a route out there and then a year later say, I'm sorry, we don't have the money. We have to take that route away. So that is all being evaluated. It's a really big issue, Ryan and Amanda. And we're gonna sort of bite that elephant one piece at a time.
So my other suggestion, so all free rides or no free rides, or at least so if I have a passenger that has a bus pass every single day and she gets on and says, I forgot my bus pass at home. I know that she has one. I'm going to let her go. But these people are just courtesy ride, courtesy ride, courtesy ride. Like we need to have the ability to say no, no courtesy ride. We have the protective barriers in the buses now. We have the panic buttons. It used to be if you didn't have the money to pay for the bus, you didn't ride the bus. And if they're low income, perhaps there could be a program that they could apply for a bus ticket, just, you know, like the kids get on their phone, where the students have the bus ticket on their phone, you know, low income can submit just as if they were, you know, getting government benefits and get their bus pass so that they are using their ticket, able to ride the bus, but we would stop the stress from everyone just saying, oh, you have to bleeping give me a ride, I know that you can't say no. And that's what they're saying now, because they've learned that we can't say no. We can't go, no, you can't get on the bus. You have to pay something. So, I mean, maybe a program to help people who really need it and they can go through the steps to get it. And the ability for us to say no, because if we say no to someone, we get written up, and then the other passengers are mad at us because they paid and then they don't want to pay the next time.
Got it. We will talk. We're going to continue to think this through and talk about it. So stay tuned.
I don't know if
All
I
right.
can add on to that, Amy, real quick. I think it should be fair across the board for everyone. The same standard should apply unless there's specific circumstances, which disabilities and whatnot have already been part of the system for decades, ever since I've been in Reno. So I think that's kind of important. You know, if one person has to pay, the rest should pay. If RTC decides to create free ridership all across the board, then they have to make that decision. Otherwise, yeah, it does put you in a really bad position. And with stress levels being at how they are right now, probably makes you at an even more higher danger, because someone's going to come on and they're not going to know whether or not they can get on the bus for free, because it's like a tariff situation, keeps changing. So, you know, the economy is starting to dump. You know, people want stability. So yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, and then and then yeah, just to say my comment earlier is more of my progressive ideal for public transit, right? And I understand the situation on the ground, Jim, and I thank you for always being very helpful in responding to that. So yeah, and in that case, I would also agree that I think the fares should be enforced, you know, especially since they are such an important part of RTC's income.
Just
I
to sorry, I interrupted there. I apologize. But just some positive news. I know the federal shutdown is happening, and that's big news. But that should not have any impact
Mm.
on our service.
Mm.
So that's a good thing.
That is good. Yeah.
They won't move new grants. So if it
Mm.
is a long-term shutdown, that would prohibit us from buying buses in the future and so on.
Mm.
But short term is no impact on RTC. I
Okay.
wanted to bring some positivity here.
Yeah, thank you. No, that is good news. You know, like Damien said, it's important that people still have, you know, stability. It's important that people still get to their jobs and go to work and, you know, earn an income for themselves. And yeah, so I understand the situation on the ground. I also, you know, I've worked many jobs before where I have to interact with the public, and sometimes with a hot, tired, exhausted, sometimes violent public. And I, you know, at some point you have to capitulate. At some point you just have to accept that this person's gonna do what they're gonna do, because I'm not gonna overpower them. But I kind of, you know, what's the, yeah, flight marshals on public airlines. It's basically after 9/11, you know, the TSA started putting plainclothes officers on flights, kind of as a randomized enforcement and deterrent. Um, and so these officers were not intimidating, you know, they were not there standing in the corner looking with a scar on their face and a gun on their belt. They just basically sat and kept quiet until there was a problem, at which point they presented their badge as a federal officer, and they presented a solution, which was kicking you off the flight. Um, and so I understand Amanda's comment that we probably need some sort of security on the buses. I've I've been late to work more times than I can count because there was somebody on the bus who needed to get kicked off, and we had to wait for the police to arrive, and it slowed everybody down, and I had to tell my managers why I was always late. But to be concise, I think that it would hopefully not add too much cost, and hopefully, you know, Reno Police or Washoe County sheriffs might help with, you know, adding some plain clothes enforcement, some bus marshals to the system so that if there is an altercation, there is a higher probability of having it resolved. And once these riders, these courtesy riders, understand that there is the randomized chance of having an officer boot them, they might be, more inclined to respect the bus drivers. Thank you.
You are welcome.
All right. Air marshals. That's right. That's right. Thank you, Josh. That's the term. Okay. I think does anybody have Opana? Please go ahead. I saw your hand.
No problem. Thank you. And I guess, I don't know, maybe a tidbit to chime into this conversation that I may or may not be helpful is sometimes even a very basic step of observation and documentation can just bring enough attention to someone to make them consider the impact of their behavior on others. And I know they have that like senior citizens volunteer group with the Reno police. Maybe they could help out with observation and note taking as like a very first step towards, documenting and just creating the impression that someone is watching. So that's one thought on that. Just going back to the survey first, Alex and Josh, I apologize if I made you feel criticized or defensive about the survey. I can't speak for my friend. I don't know what her impression was when she opened the survey, but I'm guessing she just saw the list of different types of RTC stuff and, her very quick bit of attention that she had allocated to the page like evaporated. And I'm just sharing that with you as a point of information. I'm not saying the survey is fatally flawed or something. I did go through to the page where I got overwhelmed, and it's the one with all the questions to rate from 1 to 5. And, being someone who does need to think about things before I answer questions, it will take me more than 90 seconds to complete. So anyway, those are just little tidbits for you to consider. My ultimate takeaway is that I really appreciate the work you're doing to collect all this information, and I hope that the information can get you the data that you can use. And so that's why I was suggesting perhaps level 0 for the people who actually have 0 engagement with the system. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Pana. All right. I thank you, everybody, for what seems like a very productive meeting. I think we no longer have any public comment. We'll go ahead and end the meeting here. Thank you all for your time, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to me.
Oh,
Have a
you're
good
welcome.
day.
Thanks for sharing.
It's really interesting
Meeting
hearing
adjourned.
input directly from people that have to do it from that side. I know what it is. I know what it's like. Yeah, totally. I used to be a mail carrier, so I've had to deal with that too.
Yeah.
All right.
And Pana, I liked your comments about, also just having an observation period as well. I don't want to seem alarmist by putting, deputized members on the bus, because I know that can also be intimidating for our riders as well. I know armed officers are intimidating to me. I have had bad history with them in the past as well. But it's important. I think those community volunteers was a great thought, because it's important that somebody has the training to safely interact with the public and to talk them down. It's not necessarily the bus driver's job to do that.
Yeah.
That's a very kind of dedicated skill, is talking someone down and talking someone out of possibly violent behavior. Obviously I think a lot of this can be done with words, ideally and peacefully, but it's I've been in Amanda's situation myself, and it's scary, and it doesn't want to make you show up for work, and it's hard. So, I think some help is needed, and I think we did a good job discussing that today.
I'm curious, Amy, how helpful are those barriers? I mean, because they kind of came during the pandemic as a way of being able to, like separate air, but then they just seemed to be kind of like kept on as like, well, they also protect us too. I mean, that's the perception I have. Yeah, I'm just wondering, how useful are they?
So the new NRF, I
Recording
actually was at
stopped.
that legislative session to get those barriers put in the bus. That happened after the attack on Tom Parthens, where he was ripped from his seat, pulled to the floor, and physically stomped on, ribs broken, jaw broken. Had he had that barrier, that person would not have been able to come up from behind and hit him or pull him right out of that seat. I mean, so the new barriers, they put those in recently. Are they perfect? No, but are they a buffer to help slow something down? Yeah.
I think of like New York subways where like the driver is literally in a different compartment, completely unreachable. I also think that the more ridership there is, the less likely something like that could happen, because there's a feeling of security among multiple people that might be trouble, but then also there could just be that paralyzed deer in the headlights reaction where people don't even understand, wow, this is actually happening, what should I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
there's been times where when I have someone going crazy on the bus, I pull over and I tell them, you got to go. They'll say no, and my passengers will put them out. They a lot of them will stand up for their driver, and they also have places to go, so they don't want to sit there on the side of the road while this person in the bus is going nuts. I mean, I had a guy the other day, he was making threats, telling us how dangerous he was. He introduced an imaginary police partner that was not there. And then when I asked him where he was going, he told me to the Social Security office to rob the place. And then I was told later that he was allowed to get back on the bus.
Yeah. Well, and it's difficult too, because a lot of times people can experience psychosis, right? Where it's a temporary loss of their mental faculties.
I go through
and
that all the time.
Yeah, and psychosis is interesting because that shouldn't, it's not helpful for them to be in public when they're going through psychosis, but eventually they might have to get on the bus in the future, but maybe they should write an apology or something, And
then all of this is going to affect ridership, because people will see this, it's going to make them use, and then fewer people will use the bus, and it just...
Yeah, I mean, I always don't like to make gender observations, but most of my friends who identify as female, their number one reason is not cost, it's not accessibility, it's
safety.
Not number of buses, it's not routes, it's just safety, and that's it.
Yeah.
They barely even go outside the second the sun sets,
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I just, we hear you, basically.
Now Uber is offering a service where female passengers can specifically request female drivers. That's so it's not just buses either.
Yeah, it's an interesting change to our culture. I mean, when I visited Japan in 2018, a lot of the subways had female-only seating sections.
Wow.
For that same reason. And there was a bit of culture shock there for me, because I grew up, I don't know, I'm not very old. But when I was growing up, I grew up in a less violent and more egalitarian time, I would say, overall.
Civil,
yeah.
I mean, to me, it's just a bus. I'm trying to get somewhere. And then you, Amy, would have to, you're also dealing with, like, I got to get there on time because my boss is going to get on my case if I'm not. I mean, I remember being a mail carrier, how important it was to be on time. And it's, anyway, I wish we could have these kind of conversations more often rather than just in the meeting. I think it's really, really helpful. Anyway.
Well, I think there's a little bit of time at the end when the meeting adjourns officially. you know, we can still maintain a small discussion here. I think it
Yeah.
doesn't seem like that's too much of a problem.
We should
Yeah,
get
but
together
I
for
do have to.
dinner
What was
or
that?
something. Well, I said we should get together sometime, have some food, just hang out,
Yeah,
talk.
yeah,
Okay.
definitely. All right.
It was
Well,
a really
thank you
nice
all.
meeting, by the way.
Yes.
Definitely. All right, thank you all, and thank you all for staying on too from RTC. Just to listen.
Observing.
All right.
Yes.
Everyone.
Everybody have a good night. Take
You
care.
too.